So, insurance following banking. Somebody bust out the tequila shots because it's about to be a party. I'm Jesse. Thank you for having me on the stage today. I'm going to do my best to take as long as possible because I stand between you and lunch, and I need to do my part to decrease the obesity rates in the United States. Right now, and all jokes aside, obesity rates are running at about a third of our population. It's enormous. The cost of type 2 diabetes and coronary heart disease is about $350 billion on our economy. It's huge dollars. And those two diseases in particular, I chose them because they're mostly preventable through diet and exercise. So keep that in the back of your mind as I go through my talk today. Clicker, cool, here we go. All right. So who's Aetna? We are a 160-year-old multi-line insurance company. Super, super sexy, I know. That's our building in the background, largest colonial building in the United States. Don't really know what that means, except it looks like a big skyscraper made out of bricks flipped on its edge, so it's really long and narrow. A lot of marble, a lot of gold, really, really old school in there. Not a place where you would think a lot of innovation is happening. We touch 50 million lives in the United States. And we touch those people at a time when they're most vulnerable, when they need the care of others. And then we show up, and we try to help them with that care, but then we also present them with a bill. No one, when they're in a condition where they need the help of others, wants to have to deal with their finances as well. So we're in a situation where it's tough for us to build really positive interactions with our potential consumers, our potential members, and our existing members. So we're about 50,000 employees, and our revenue last year is about $35.5 billion. So little company. We're up in Hartford, Connecticut, where I live. And what I'm here today to talk to you about is CarePass, which is what I would consider a holistic platform. So CarePass is about your health. It looks at your entire healthcare journey, health and healthcare journey, from beginning to end. Everything from finding care, which I'll talk to you about in a second. We've actually acquired a company to provide the best solution for. But everything from finding care, through getting care in the physician's office, to dealing with the bills when you walk out of the physician's office, and then most importantly, staying out of the doctor's office by managing your health and staying well. So we looked at that entire journey, and as we look at it as a company that way. About 2.5 years ago, I was in our marketing department, and our CEO at the time tapped a small group of us, had us come into his office, and what he had on his desk was a book and 2 phones. He had his Android phone and his iPhone. We didn't know what the context of the meeting was about, so we sat down. He took out his iPhone, opened the Red Laser app, scanned the book, showed the book pop up through a number of different shopping outlets, including Amazon, listing everything by price, and he went through and showed us how he can complete that transaction. He said, I want that for healthcare. Go build. Go. And we said, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to build this? So he took our team, brought us all together. We brainstormed. We said, what do we need for that type of solution to be built? And what he was talking about was free-flowing data between multiple sources. What he was talking about is the genesis of an API program, though he never called it out. At the time, none of us on my team had any experience at all with API programs, anything to do with platforms. Most of us had come up from areas within the insurance company. So we start to look externally and say, how do we build a platform from the ground up? Number one, we don't have any users. Number two, we don't have any data. Number three, we don't have any API program. So we have to build everything all at once. So what we did is we built CarePass first. So CarePass was a consumer destination which would allow people to bring their data together from all these areas of their lives to help them achieve their health and wellness goals. We looked at finding care, and we went out to the market, found iTriage, determined that they were the best solution in the space, acquired them, brought them on. We looked at what do we have for health data? What can we bring into the consumer experience for health data? We brought in Aetna's PHR for Aetna members, and we're looking to integrate additional PHRs. We looked at how do we bring the quantified self movement that's taking hold, or was taking hold at the time, and now is just exploding, to the people that we want to experience CarePass. So we looked at companies like Withings, and I'll keep going here. We have companies like Jawbone and Fitbug and Fitbit that we've integrated with our platform. So we're hitting on the fitness aspects as well. Look at sleep. We brought in Jawbone, and Body Media is listed there, who's now part of Jawbone. And then from a food perspective, you notice Lose It, one of the biggest guys out there. We have Spark People as well, and others like Fat Secret. We're continuing to expand our platform. But what are we doing with all these people? So we're bringing all these apps together to allow people to connect these different apps. They can use one app, they can use multiple apps to achieve their goal. So that's what carepass.com does. It's available and open to everyone, not just our members. So you can go out to carepass.com now, set a unique wellness goal, link in any apps you're using, or learn about new apps through the way that you can discover them in our platform, hook them up, and begin to see how that data comes in and affects all the different areas of your life. It's also available mobile web and on iPhone and Android. So it's multi-channel as well. So we're not only here, though, pulling data from APIs that are out there to make this experience work. We knew that we had to open data up as well that was a part of this platform to allow new solutions to be created and to allow these app companies to bring in data about Aetna members and other users of these other apps to personalize their experiences within the other apps. So we created an open door to everyone. That open door is developer.carepass.com. With our developer portal, we're using Mashery's product to open up the core fabric of CarePass and all the data elements using the OAuth Accelerator as a part of the platform to enable people to identify themselves and say, you know what, I want to bring my data in from Runkeeper, and I want to bring it into Zipongo. So they're able to pull data in and into their apps to personalize that experience. We also, if you'll notice, alongside our API, which is called CarePass Sync, the one I was just talking about, launched a number of other APIs. APIs that we're brokering from other third parties. We worked with the Department of Health and Human Services to broker some of their APIs. But then we decided, you know what, why don't we start working with other small companies out there like GoodRx or Nutritionix or Food Care and start to help them open their APIs to the world or at least give them another distribution channel. Why did we do this? So actually, I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to jump back. So our original hypothesis was that developers want data. And what we want as owners of CarePass is their solutions. We want people to be able to plug those new apps into their connected health and wellness journey. If we open that data up, innovation's definitely going to follow. People will come. If we build it, they'll come. We heard earlier, and how that may not be reality. If we build it, they'll come. If we open the data, they're going to create things that are beyond our wildest dreams. We'll get innovative, personalized products, and that's going to bring consumers to the fold. And positive experiences with those consumers will bring brand loyalty. And brand loyalty for us means a consumer who's never heard of Aetna, when they're in an environment where they're now selecting between multiple insurance carriers, whether that's through their employer or through one of the new state healthcare exchanges. They see Aetna and they say, Aetna did good things for me. I'm going to pick those guys over the other ones, even though the product looks the same and the price is probably about the same. We do things that are a little bit better. So that was our original hypothesis. Now let me talk about, and I'll circle back to, why we opened up those other APIs alongside CarePass Sync. So how do you get traffic to a new anchor store? We thought a lot about that. CarePass Sync is our anchor store. We want people to connect their apps in there so that that data flows freely. We said, well, let's put it in a mall. We'll just put all these other popular stores in alongside it. So we'll bring in Walgreens. We'll bring in the apps like iTriage. We'll bring all those guys in. Because they're all there, developers are going to want to come because they'll think, OK, maybe it's a one-stop shop. I'll go there and I'll use these APIs. I'll pull on these APIs. And oh, by the way, I'll also integrate this CarePass Sync API Because don't forget, it's a brand new platform. There's not a whole lot of users there. There's not a whole lot of data. There's not a whole lot of draw to want to integrate with a brand new platform off the bat. So we brought developers there. That was our idea. Bring them all there with this one-stop shopping experience. In reality, we introduced a bit of confusion. They came to CarePass and they thought, well, what exactly is this? How does this all connect to the consumer experience? Maybe I'll build something with, Walgreens and Food Care and GoodRx, and then they would forget about CarePass Sync. And for us, what's important is not only driving innovation. That's great. Glad that they built solutions on those platforms. They're all awesome solutions, great APIs. But we want them to be a part of our ecosystem. And to become part of our ecosystem, you have to integrate with CarePass and the CarePass Sync API. So that was our original approach. CarePass Sync is that anchor store for us. It's that Nordstrom. We need people to go there in order to solve some of the issues we want to solve holistically for the healthcare system, which is freeing up data and letting it flow. So in reality, what we found as we went out to the market, we had that experience which was a bit confused. We went out to the market. We had Codathons. We actually held a large developer challenge where we handed out $100,000 in prizes. What we learned from talking with people is that there are a lot of companies out there that already have apps, or there are a lot of entrepreneurs that have an idea. What they're seeking is not truly, in our case, and it's not like this across the board, but in our case, they weren't seeking from Aetna our data. We had opened up claim data. We had opened up estimated cost of care for the most popular procedures that are out there. And developers were not interested in it. What they had consistently talked to us about at the events we visited was, how do I get my app in front of your 50 million eyeballs? How do I distribute this thing, this great idea I have, this app that I put out there and my friends and family love? How do I get that in this sea of apps that are out there in the app stores? How do I get this thing visible? How can you guys get this in front of people for me? So we thought a lot about that. We said, OK. So what's important to us is being connected to CarePass in our ecosystem. And it's about those innovative solutions. Maybe it doesn't matter if they use the data that we're opening and some of the other APIs that we're putting out there. It's still an innovative solution. It's still something that's going to help us bend that obesity curve. We'll bring them into the ecosystem. But what we need to do then is rethink our API strategy. So what we're doing is actually working. Let me go ahead here, and then I'm going to flick back. We're working with Chuck, Sasha, and Linda from the Mashery Strategic Services team to re-envision our entire developer portal. So now you had that whole list of APIs that were together on that one page on our site. There's really nothing on there besides documentation and the ability to get keys, and it looks kind of pretty. What we're doing is actually breaking it apart and productizing the CarePass Sync API, making it truly look like a product, separating it from everything else on the site, making sure that we surround it with inspiring stories about the success that that developers have seen by integrating with our CarePass Sync API. An example would be a company like Zapongo, who's a startup some of you may have heard of. We were just at Open World last week, as Oren mentioned earlier, on stage talking about CarePass, and Martha was up there, and she mentioned partners like Fat Secret and Zapongo, who would never be mentioned on a stage like that if they weren't integrated with our platform. Those little events, big events, but any exposure we can grant those apps is gold to them. So they looked at those, a situation like that, and that's a huge success story for them, because we made Zapongo now a name that's known by many more people than it had been known before. And there are many, many cases of success stories around people integrating apps with our platform, getting them in front of plan sponsors, getting them into our members' hands. So we're going to re-architect our portal to be focused on those success stories, on true use cases, showing how best to integrate with our platform, not using sample apps that are just out there that we've built, sample code, but actually real-life apps and real-life examples. And any of those partners would be happy to talk to any of the developers that have solutions that want to build on our platform. So we're going to include those. We're going to really, really showcase those testimonials. One of the other things you'll notice up here is I said we'll decrease hackathons. Hackathons are fantastic, or codathons are fantastic. I was just at Active Networks last week judging one where I thought some pretty innovative solutions came about. And they were actually driven by both collegiate teams, non-collegiate teams, and then they had an internal track as well. All at the same hackathon. The internal track came up with some fantastic solutions. It was very, very cool to see. For Aetna, when we've engaged in hackathons with our APIs and our data, the solutions we've got they've been okay. They've been basically literal translations of our APIs into apps. So let's take estimated cost of care. How much does it cost to get an MRI done in this geography? We're going to make an app that does exactly that. That's not exactly the type of innovation we're looking for. Some others earlier mentioned that there was some literal interpretations. I think it was Aviary mentioned that there are people just literally interpreting their APIs every single day into an app. It's okay, but what we wanted to do was truly get real sticky solutions, things that are great ideas, fully integrated with CarePass Sync, which is important because now you have that data share. Get those apps integrated with our platform so that we can get those to our members. We held a focused developer workshop in San Francisco last year, and we have another one coming up this year, where we hand-selected groups of apps that are already out there and developers, brought them into a room, and worked with those guys over a period of 2 days to really get their apps completely integrated with CarePass. It's actually not that big a lift, but when you have that intensive support of the CarePass product managers, those teams feel like, okay, if somebody's listening, somebody sees my idea, they see my app, I want to integrate. So we brought them in and successfully integrated 5 apps in a couple of days. Most of them were up and running, actually, in about 2 hours. And then they spent the rest of the time just refining that experience based on our comments. So we're going to continue forward with those. We are also still looking at doing an internal codathon as well on our side. There was a slide earlier which showed that lawyers eat up about 3/4 of that apple of an idea that you have. Our lawyers are giving us fits around the idea of an internal codathon. But anyone who's run one and has some legalese I can run by them about what we make employees sign around who owns the IP, I'd love to have that so I can feed that to them. That's sidebar. But that's one of the things we want to do as well. So we are going to increase our curated integration workshops because that's what works for us right now. Maybe in the future, the hackathons will begin to work again. So let me go back and talk about, so why open up, and then why does this matter? So I've talked a lot about building this cross-platform ecosystem, which allows data to be flow between the apps and devices you connect. But it is all for that big purpose of solving big problems in healthcare. So I mentioned obesity and coronary heart disease earlier and the tax it is on our nation. Well, it's a tax on Aetna's business as well. We make money with a very simple equation. We bring in more money through insurance premiums than we pay out in medical expenses. The less that you're in a doctor's office, the easier it is for Aetna to meet our revenue targets. In a way, I don't like to even say that out loud because that's a touchy subject, and healthcare is a touchy subject. But when it comes down to it, we are a business. That's the way that we make money. So keeping people healthy is not only an altruistic goal of ours, it's also a financial goal of ours. So CarePass, by letting data flow freely, allows people to bring data together and identify correlations that are there between the different data sources to help them either lose weight or, in the future, identify true medical correlations, which they can either take action on directly or they can take action on by sharing with a physician who can look at that data alongside them and say, you know what, that data point correlated with that data point is something I want to focus on here, and that's a negative. And if we work on your diet, or we work on your exercise, or we have you check your insulin levels more often, or we adjust your carb intake, we can help to bend the curve there and make you a healthier person. So those are the reasons that CarePass exists. But the API program in general, so why are APIs important? Have you guys heard of a company called King? Raise your hand if you've heard of the company King. So maybe an eighth of the audience. King is the developer of Candy Crush Saga. You guys have heard of Candy Crush. Probably most of the room has it on their phone, or at some point in the day is pulling it out and clicking around a little bit and then putting it back in their pocket. Candy Crush is huge. It has 100 million daily users. And they supposedly have recently filed for an IPO. It's hush-hush at this point, and nobody knows if it's true or not. but the valuation is supposedly $5 billion. That app is free. Nobody has any insight into what they're actually making for money. But what they've done is they've built an ecosystem. They have all these captive eyeballs, and you can do a lot with captive eyeballs. For Aetna, we want to capture our consumer eyeballs. We want to capture consumer eyeballs before they're Aetna members, get them engaged in our ecosystem, get them losing weight, eating better, feeling better, having more energy, working out more, using our products so that when they go to purchase insurance, they choose Aetna. So that's the example of how an ecosystem is a driver for us. It's completely indirect from a monetization perspective. We don't make $1 out of the CarePass system today. Product innovation. So I mentioned we're a 160-year-old company. We do not come up with the best product ideas. We've tried to create apps many, many times, applications and apps. We fail at it. We know that consumers are out there downloading apps like MapMyFitness 30 million times, and we can't put anything out there that gets 20,000 downloads. So by working with those partners, we get free product innovation. They integrate with our platform. We now can offer that solution to our members or our prospects, and it's something that they see coming from Aetna. So they indirectly relate that brand to Aetna's, which is great because people love those solutions. So we want to bring more of those solutions to people, get them loving Aetna more by bringing all this innovation to bear. And it doesn't cost us anything. It's great. Simplified integration and reuse. So we've talked about this, the internal aspects of an API program. For Aetna, it's been interesting because, and you've seen this a lot now across many industries, you have all these little startups that pop up. And most of the time, their goal is to exit. They want to be purchased by a big company like Aetna. We purchased iTriage. iTriage is an example of one of those small companies that was out there. We bought them. By having an API program, we can easily integrate those companies, much more easily than we could if we had to try to make them integrate with our old back-end legacy systems. With the CarePass API, we did something like, give an example. We allow users that are Aetna members to pull in their personal health records into CarePass, only if they're an Aetna member and they authenticate as an Aetna member. Well, iTriage needs that information. To go integrate with the old PHR system, the old legacy PHR system, would have been a huge lift. But going through the CarePass APIs, it's simple. They get a key, they integrate that data just like any other app would integrate that data, and all of a sudden they now have that experience built in. And we've cut through months and months and months of the traditional process. What we have done, Aetna has a whole arm of our business called Healthagen, which is about incubating brand new companies, bringing in people, running a slingshot process where we bring in consumers, come up with an idea, and then actually foster and build that new business. Their entire platform is built from the ground up on services and APIs. And I actually recently just completed a whole initiative where we're going to begin powering our other mobile assets at Aetna with services instead of screen scraping, which is the way that a lot of companies get away with creating a mobile product very quickly. I identified in 3 weeks 66 new services that we're going to have to create over the next year and a half if we want to enable that. And we're going to create all those services. We're going to open them up internally through our API, but we can also open some of those externally to the world as well. And all of those little companies that are popping up in Healthagen, they'll be able to take advantage of that data right away. Any companies we acquire, we'll be able to give them access to that data right away. And that's data to all of our core systems. So it'll be fantastic. We're excited about it. So really simplified integration and reuse of services. And then finally, direct monetization. This is actually not a lever we pull right now. We don't have any way to directly monetize CarePass, and we don't have any plan to. We don't charge for API calls. We don't charge consumers or members to use CarePass. It's open to anyone right now. We do have some ideas around marketing CarePass to employers where we'd give them some added benefits for some cost. But CarePass as a whole in our developer portal, there is no direct monetization. Works well for some companies, doesn't work for us. We just really want to build that ecosystem of eyeballs up and get that brand affinity there. And then lastly, it matters. So we jumped more than 200 spots in Information Week's list of leading technology innovators this year. And they directly cited CarePass as a reason for that jump. So people are noticing it works. It's not just internal. It's not just me speaking in this room. people out there in the world notice. Lazard Capital Markets, after meeting with us at our Health Data Palooza event and seeing our presentations there and using CarePass, said, wow, this is innovative. No one else in this space is doing it. They're collecting a tremendous amount of valuable data about people, ways that they interact with their health, all of their, everything from sleep to eating to who they're choosing for a physician. Aetna's collecting all of that data. We know they'll find a way to use that for the positive, and we'll reiterate a buy rating for them. So it really does translate to bottom line results.